Today on Doomed! What happens when Facebook changes the rules so that you can't lie on their platform unless you're a politician? Well, the answer is quite simple. You become a politician. On today's episode of Doomed with Matt Binder, we will be talking with Adriel Hampton, who literally did just that. He became a politician so he could push Facebook, I guess, to the brink of insanity. We'll find out what Facebook thinks of what he's doing in a second. But first, ladies and gentlemen, you can support this show by going to patreon.com/mattbinder or subscribing to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/mattbinder. Or if you're interested in just the audio podcast version of the show, doomedpod.com. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today. Let me get this. I love the long titles, Adriel. So I'm gonna go for it. Here we go. Hold on, let me pull us up on the screen here for the live stream viewers, so they could see our beautiful faces. He is the founder of the Really Online Lefty League. Folks, I implore you to check out the acronym for that. He is a Facebook antagonist, leftist activist, and, as I mentioned, a candidate for California governor. Adriel Hampton, thank you so much for joining me on this show tonight. Oh, wait 1 second. I turned up the wrong sound. Now you're up.
Great to be with you, Matt. Thanks for the introduction.
Well, no problem. Thank you, Adriel, for sticking around. There was a few technical difficulties on my end today because of various technical glitches. But we are all good to go now. As far as I know, I'm waiting for the chat to just start popping up where something's wrong, we can't hear you, the video is not on. But so far, so good, I think.
And it's still early in California, so.
Right. What time is it there right now? It's
6:50.
There we go, right. Well, anyway, I think we're good. So, Adriel, I sort of wish I didn't actually. I mean, it's sort of impossible to not introduce you as a candidate for California governor, because obviously it is such an important part of the story. But I also sort of wish I'm someone who really likes the build up for the big reveal, and I feel like we could have went that way if we wanted to with this story. We could have been.
That's what we did to Facebook. I mean, they got the big reveal.
So let's start at the beginning. Now that everyone knows where this is going, and let me tell you though, there's Facebook's reaction and what they do and say to Adriel is actually the big reveal, I think. But let's start.
They played themselves, as DJ Khaled would say.
Let's start at the beginning though. So Facebook decides last year around September to change the rules. Do you want to give us the lowdown on what Facebook did?
Yeah, so I think it was almost like more that it became public that they were rolling out this fact-checking program and continuing to expand this fact-checking program across the platform with a bunch of semi-independent fact-checking organizations, both in the U.S. and around the world. And last fall, it became a big story, first with Joe Biden with an ad that the Trump campaign was running about his son. And the Biden campaign was saying this ad is false, it should be taken down. And Facebook said, well, we actually don't take down politicians' ads for falsehoods. In fact, they're exempt from fact checking. And I did learn that that was their de facto policy all along, but when it became public, there was a big outcry. You might remember that Elizabeth Warren did an ad where she was kind of saying, I don't remember what she said, that Mark Zuckerberg had endorsed Donald Trump, maybe something like that. But the ad at the bottom of it, if you actually expanded the text, kind of said, oh, but it's a lie because Facebook allows lies. So everyone was thinking about this issue like, wait a minute, politicians can say whatever they want on Facebook without any repercussions?
Right. And, I covered this as, a reporter at Mashable. And I'm still, like, as I was getting ready for today's show, I was like, wait a minute. I wrote about this, and I can't remember what all the little exceptions are, because Facebook has, I feel like, a dozen different exceptions for
I mean, Facebook put the Daily Caller and Tucker Carlson in charge of fact checking in the US. They're one of the approved groups. So they've got some serious problems. Honestly, my concern was I think at the time the Washington Post was just coming out. This is the story kind of really happened for me in late October. And I knew that Trump lies like he breathes, right? He just makes up stuff. He doesn't really care. He just kind of ad libs. And we're really dealing with it now with the pandemic. But back then, well documented, lying all the time. And the problem is when you target Facebook ads, if you lie in them, you can get people to give you personal information at a much higher rate than if your ads have to be a little bit more by the book, right? If you can make up things that get people excited and really get their blood pumping, especially right-wing reactionaries who form Trump's base, and older people who maybe aren't as discriminating about their news. They're not used to the internet news that if you grew up with the internet, you kind of learned hopefully some of the filtering mechanisms to know if things are truthful. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez got Mark Zuckerberg during a hearing on Libra up in Capitol Hill, and she started grilling him. And she had asked online, and so I was kind of prepped for what was going to happen because she had asked people to direct message her on Twitter with questions that she should ask Zuckerberg. And so it became a huge line of questioning to say, could we lie on Facebook with our campaigns? And, for example, she said, could I say that conservatives in swing districts support my Green New Deal proposal?
Right. And the idea, to me, the idea that you would allow the politicians lie seems like it's so backwards. If you were to have a platform and you were we're going to allow anything goes, but I think that our elected officials should be held to a higher standard. I think that would be the first thought process. It wouldn't be the reverse where it's all the common folk who may be fed this stuff and not realize it's false. They can't post that stuff. The guys who know they're lying, they can do it.
It's pretty bizarre, and I think my perspective on it as a leftist and as someone who my background is in media. I was a journalist for several years in San Francisco primarily, and it did seem very bizarre, and it seemed like it was Facebook catering to Trump and the GOP because they're the ones who are going to exploit this policy. So AOC sticks it to Zuckerberg, and I watched the hearing. And then I didn't watch it live. I watched it later that night. And I was like, holy shit, we could just make that ad. And I just happened to have a PAC sitting around with a great acronym and the ability to spend money on political things and, be political on Facebook. And I contacted a friend who I work with who does media. And he said, first I was like, can we make a meme that tells this story and we'll just put it up on Facebook and see if it runs? And he said, no, it's got to be a video, And so we talked about it and we came up with this idea to put Lindsey Graham, because we wanted a famous Republican, in a video endorsing the Green New Deal. And what he came up with was just brilliant because he found some video where Graham basically gives all these lines that feed right into it. And then we didn't have to fake any audio or anything. It was just their own words, but slightly out of context. We did create a picture that showed Ocasio-Cortez arm in arm with Lindsey Graham. And the ad, we got Facebook to approve that ad through the Really Online Lefty League PAC.
I love the idea that there is a actual PAC with the acronym TROLL. I got to give you props for that, just straight up. It's fantastic.
One of my buddies in San Francisco, I had started a PAC a few years back, and maybe in 2017, and ended up having a conflict with the other people I was working with on it about what it was going to be about, what it was going to do. And I said, you know what, I don't want conflict. You can keep the PAC. We'd done maybe a little bit of work setting it up, just wrote it off, took our names off. And so sitting down with this friend at Zeitgeist, the popular pub in kind of the Mission area, and he said in Soma, and he says, I said, I need a pack that like expresses that this is about crazy projects that people, they'll read the name and they'll go, what? They'll like be taken aback. And he goes, what if you called the pack Troll? And I was like, the really online lefty league. And it was just too good, you know, it was too good. But for a year, we didn't do very much. We were doing like, I think we spent maybe a couple of $1,000s on ads that were designed to get memes into the hands of people fighting the Republican congressional representatives in California. So our idea was that you would send, you know, $200 to send a meme into the district, and all the activists in the district will end up picking it up and recirculating it and reusing it to go after that politician. And we wanted to do more and more of that. And then it's hard to raise money when that's not your full-time job. This is like a money-losing pack, basically. Right. And but with this Ocasio-Cortez thing, it really went viral. It went like the most press I've ever seen for any project I've been involved with directly.
Now, so this ad goes up, this fake ad that, it's a real ad that falsely says that Lindsey Graham is supportive of the Green New Deal. And it goes up under your PAC, the Really Online Lefty League. What does Facebook do?
Well, after it's run for about a day and it's getting all kinds of press coverage, actually, it might have even run longer than that. And
this is right after that hearing where Ocasio-Cortez gets all this, you know, rightfully so, gets all this press on her with her great line of questioning to Zuckerberg.
Right. So the press was primed for this. And in fact, one of the things I was afraid of was that we weren't going to do it fast enough and someone else would release the ad, you know, really. And that's what some reporters told me. They were like, if I worked at BuzzFeed, I might have just made the ad myself to make the story, you know, like, and reported on it.
The problem with BuzzFeed is they're a media organization. They didn't have a political apparatus set up. And I think by you thinking someone else in politics was going to do that, I think you're giving the minds
too much credit.
Yeah, the minds in politics a little bit too much credit, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so our efforts are very, like, I'm more kind of Silicon Valley entrepreneurial, but I'm also a leftist, which is not a super common combination. And I luckily had the infrastructure and the apparatus. And, you know, people were interviewing me about it and saying, well, but you're a marketer. And it's like, yeah, sure, you know. But the bigger point is, should Facebook be allowing people to lie on their platform if they're paying money to spread those lies? That's like it's not just that you're allowed to lie for a politician, it's that you can advertise your lies, right? Which is extreme. It's not just lie to your base or your fan page or your organic audience. It's lie and target those lies with Facebook's most powerful ever algorithms, right? For audience creation and targeting. So they fact-checked the ad.
Let's just, before we get there, I just want to point out, just like, because you got to it right there, just how even more crazy it is. Like, just a couple minutes ago, I said, you know, if you were a normal person and running a company like Facebook, and you had this platform, you'd be like, politicians are the group that can't lie. But on top of that, you're saying that when it comes to the money you take, you can't turn it down. So it's not just that you're allowing them to lie on your platform. You're saying you can't put a line in the sand, again, on your own platform and say, fine, they could lie, and if it spreads organically, it's out of our hands. But, you know, you could say, we won't take their money, though, so it definitely spreads through paid engagement. No, they're saying they can't even, that they're not going to do that specifically. Like, that's just...
It's very crazy, and all of the reporting since this outcry in the fall has focused on, it looks like it was Peter Thiel and Mark Zuckerberg making this decision, and it very much enables Trump because they have hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe they might spend $1 billion between Trump and the Republican Party or more, and their aligned PACs. But the ones that have this exemption are the parties and the politicians. And so it's really Trump and the GOP, hundreds of millions of dollars to amplify anything that they want. You know, which again it is very different than someone who has an organic audience or has even, you know, it's huge in scale. So they, one of the fact checkers called Lead Stories fact checked my ad, said it was false, that it was blatantly false. I then reposted the ad and tried to run it. Oh, I reposted the ad on my Facebook page organically on the Really Online Lefty League page. They fact checked it again, even though the second time it said, this is the fake ad that's gone viral and it's in the news. I thought that was super unfair. But the fact checks are like dings on your page. If your page gets fact checked too often, they'll suppress your organic reach, and you can, I think, get your page shut down. Also, they at that point limit the distribution of the ad. They cloak it, so you have to like open it up to reveal. They tell everyone it's fake. So they did all of that. And the reporters I was talking to, they said, well, Adriel, Facebook tells us that your ad was through a PAC, not a politician, and so you can't run it. And this is where it gets really crazy. You talk about these weird nuances. So I was a volunteer senior advisor to Mike Gravel's campaign, and my firm helped with some of his Facebook advertising. And so I reached Mike Gravel, this like 88-year-old former senator, and I said, Mike, let me just real quickly give you the background. And then I said, Mike, can we run our ad on your page? And because you're a politician. And he said, sure. So we started running it on his page. And within like hours, they had shut it down on his page. And this time, again, Facebook was not talking to me, but the fact checkers were. And they said, well, Adriel, your Mike Gravel is like a retired politician. So we're not sure he's a real politician, which is now you're going to let fact checkers decide who is and isn't a politician when someone was a senator and was just running for president, right? And they said also
sounded like a good reason for Mike to unsuspend his campaign.
Right. I know. I do. Unsuspend is like the word of the week. So at this point, and then of course Mike is like, "What do you mean I'm not a real politician?" He's going to go apoplectic, and he's like, "I have a book coming out. I better be a real politician," And so then. They also told me that if an ad, and this is in Facebook's policies, if an ad has already been fact-checked or a post has already been fact-checked, anywhere else you run it or post it is also going to get fact-checked. So anyone else who runs your content gets a ding on their page as well. So it's like very harsh penalties. But
they're Facebook is trying to facilitate original lies. They don't want you to they don't want you to regurgitate the old stuff we've all seen before. You got to come up with something creative and new every time.
Oh my God. Well, it's I'm not sweating because of my fight with Facebook. That's very chill. It's very hot here in Southern California right now. But so then, luckily, I'm operating with a Silicon Valley, startup mindset. I'm not, running a big, super big crew of advertising people that are making ads for $40,000 a piece. Like our every action we've done costs less than $2,000 so far. And the ads, you can have a great video for like $400 if you know the right people to work with. And I was like, okay, so we need a new ad and we need a politician. And so I started like talking to people and saying, hey, I called up my friend Shahid Buttar, who's running against Nancy Pelosi, and I had worked on his campaign last year for several months. And I said, Shahid, will you run one of these fake ads? Like, we'll get you into the news cycle, like just help me out. And he was into it. But again, anytime you're working with a politician or an organization, there's like, approvals and thought process. And I was just like, fuck it. I have a PAC and I'm a human being. I'm just going to run for office. And I called a friend on like the Monday morning. And what's really crazy is my wife was out of town. And if she'd been in town, I probably wouldn't be running for governor. And she's like, I'm like such, but I called a friend and I said, like, are there any drawbacks to me like just running for office? And I was like, yeah, I don't think so. And I looked up the statutes in California. And it turns out that you can file to run for office, and all you have to do is fill out an affidavit and mail it. And literally, as soon as it's postmarked, you are officially a politician according to California law. And as long as you spend less than $2,000 a year, so that's like 4 ads plus some software expenses, right? And because you don't have to run the ads for $500 or $50,000 like a super PAC. literally, some of these ads were targeted only at journalists, and they would get like 200 views, right? Some of them reached more people, but and so I filled out the form, went down to the post office, handed it to him, held up the postmark, had the postmaster take my picture, looking like a total geek, like not ready for prime time at all. And then, of course, the next day, it's on the front of the New York Times. Not the front, but that's the picture on their story.
I'm gonna run with it was on the front of the New York Times. I'm gonna go with it, ladies and gentlemen. We have Adriel Hampton, front page New York Times story. No, but I think it's crazy that I don't think it's crazy that you're running for office. I think it's crazy that Facebook forced you to run for office.
Okay, and so then it gets even more insane because Facebook forces me to run for office, and then by that evening they're telling reporters, yeah, but Adriel Hampton is still going to get fact-checked. The only politician in the world who is eligible for fact-checking via Facebook, according to Facebook. However, the fact-checkers still tell me, you're a politician now in our eyes. You're not a retired politician, you're an active politician. And I have not been fact-checked since, and we've run fake ads since.
I did not know this, and I've covered some of your stories. Is this something that's been reported already about the fact-checkers telling you something different than?
Oh, no, that's never been reported. The fact-checker, because I sit down. They had a fact-checking convention with all their fact-checkers from around the world, and I could put you in touch with someone if you want to talk to them, because Facebook says its fact-checkers are independent, but then they're telling the press, our fact checker should fact check this guy because we don't like him because he said he was going to lie on our platform. And the problem is Trump has said 16,000 lies. He lies on your platform, fuckers.
Right.
I really but it played really well into the storyline because as soon as they said that, everyone was like, well, Facebook, you don't know what you're talking about because you change your story every few days. To adapt to what people are doing because your platform is full of holes in terms of its rules. Like you would expect that politicians would be held to a standard, at least to the standard of everyone else, and that people wouldn't be able to get paid reach on known falsehoods. And actually, one of the ministers in the UK wrote a letter to Nick Clegg, who's a VP at Facebook now, and Nick Clegg used to be a politician in the UK. And he says, and I'm forgetting which one it was exactly, but this letter is like a 2-page letter, and like it was point by point, like how Facebook is like doing horrible things. And it said, and can you explain why this guy Adriel Hampton can't run fake ads when everyone else can? Like how, because Facebook can't. How can Facebook determine who is a politician and who isn't? That becomes a real problem.
Right.
Like these platforms are more powerful than our government. I'm
actually very focused on this right now because this is not something that you had shared with me, and I'm telling you, buddy, you should have shared it with me. This is stunning to me because this is the first time hearing where Facebook's fact checkers that they pay these fact checkers to. These are organizations that are not part of Facebook. These are independent fact checking organizations. You mentioned before how the Daily Wire is one of them. Daily Caller. I'm sorry, Daily Caller. Right. Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson. What's the difference? Right.
I know exactly. Just slightly different scams.
So here you have these fact checkers that Facebook has hired, and it's not so much that they are differing on what is fact and fiction. Like they're not like, Facebook, we believe that this is a legitimate fact check. No, they're literally telling Facebook they're telling you that they disagree with Facebook's stance on one of their policies because under their policy, you are a politician, and they are saying that you are not I remember when you sent me that part of the news where Facebook came out and literally told you that we don't view you as a real politician because you're just running because you want to do this on our platform. Now, that's not one of the addendums in their policy. There's no policy that says we allow politicians to say whatever they want unless they're purposefully doing it to run Facebook ads to mess with us. No, that's not the policy. So here you have Facebook saying one thing about their policy, and the fact checkers are just saying we're not going to listen to that. That's quite stunning to me, actually. And
it remains, like I'm sure Daily Caller would like to get a fact check in on me, but they have not. And I've done 2 ads through the governor campaign, and then we have done a bunch of ads to. So basically, the other crazy thing about Facebook is with this policy and with other policies like their new oversight board for like global truthiness on Facebook, they very few cases make it to these folks. Like some of the fact checkers might only fact check 30 to 50 things a month, some of them more. But it's mostly things that go viral, or in this case, a lot of it was people are really interested in this case. So like the fact checker who did my first ad tweeted into a thread with a journalist saying, I'm the one who fact checked him, because it was like he told me that he wanted to get this fact check because the story wasn't huge on Facebook because I wasn't advertising it huge. It was huge on Twitter and it was huge in the mainstream press. And he was like, I want to get that fact check to see what happens next, And then the next thing, I was running for office, and and since then the ads they haven't gone viral enough, I think, to hit people's radar, but most of them have been covered by the media.
So what was the first ad you ran as a candidate for governor in California?
Yeah, it was called Evangelicals for Pence, and it was
That sounds pretty factual to me so far.
Right. Well, because it's not a real group, but it sounds like a real group. And then it made it look like Trump was really replacing Pence with Sean Hannity for VP for 2020. And it was from the perspective of evangelicals who were upset, and they were hoping that Trump would have a change of heart. And it included like headlines from different publications, some of which were true, some of which were totally made up. So it was kind of like, it was like plausible enough, but not quite crazy enough, but had clear falsehoods in it as well.
Right. So what are some of the other ads that you've run since those the Evangelicals for Pence? And
the second ad I ran from the gubernatorial campaign was called "Thank Mitch for Impeachment." This one got picked up by Rachel Maddow, did a whole segment on it.
I saw that, yeah.
And Thank Mitch for Impeachment was a 90-second spot that basically said, call Mitch McConnell, and it has his number on it. The whole ad was styled and scripted to look like Trump ads. He has a very distinct style.
Right.
And so it was like mocking their style, basically. And then it used testimony from Mitch McConnell that was talking about Bill Clinton, but was very applicable to Donald Trump. And it made it look like he was actually ready to impeach, and he was going to work with the Democrats in the House to find a resolution. And that one, that pretty blatantly false as well. But again, we didn't need to fake any of the audio. There's no deep fakes. Very simple to produce, and Facebook accepted both of those as paid ads.
Now I wonder if at this point Facebook just maybe they didn't get it directly from the fact checkers, but maybe they're seeing now I'm not saying there's someone at Facebook stalking you, but I'm saying their systems are noticing that, hey, no one's fact checking this guy anymore, so the automated system is you're just off their radar or something.
It may be that. I mean, I kind of you wonder if they're stalking you, because it's very easy when you're using software for people to know what you're doing.
Right.
But then you think like they really embarrassed themselves by tangling with me and saying that I couldn't run for governor, because then it just bolstered my point. Because the reason I filed to run for governor and not for some random office is that I just said that my first platform plank is going to be taking down these Silicon Valley giants who are abusing our democratic institutions. And I've since we can talk more about the actual governor campaign, because I continued to run like I'm a real candidate, but the race is 3 years away. So it's not like I have to. Yeah.
I knew it wasn't like a race this year or even next year, but just hearing you say 3 years away, it just makes it all so much more funny.
Imagine how much trouble I'm going to cause in between now and then.
Right.
That's the nice thing. So we did a bunch of other ads too. We did, you remember when Sacha Baron Cohen went off on Facebook, huge rant at the ADL annual conference?
Yes. He is no fan of Zuckerberg.
He is no fan of Zuckerberg. So we cut his speech and we interspersed a bunch of our work with it and introduced a Silicon 6 ad through the Lefty League, we then targeted to the most wealthy zip codes in Silicon Valley, and like I think 10,000 people or something saw it. So we were basically targeting Silicon Valley people with the Facebook is evil message. And then we also interspersed that. We put up digital billboards in 4 states that had imagery of Trump Zuckerberg 2020. And they look like real campaign ads, but they say paid for by the Really Online Lefty League. And we tried to target as much as we could, either high visibility or places where Zuckerberg had data centers, like near his data centers in Utah. And that ad was a lot of fun, and the ad included footage of people videotaping themselves, like driving past our billboards in different locations. We had in like Orem, Utah, in the footage. We did a committee to reelect the president, which again made up group making fun of Creep and Nixon, and it was full of Nixon references and Trump. Like it basically looks like a Nixon ad, but it's with Trump. And the MAGA people don't get it at all. They like think it's a real ad, and it just went right over their head. That one was never covered, but it was one of my favorites. It was pretty clever. And then now we're running ads that say that Bernie Sanders, not Bernie Sanders, that I'm gonna find this, that say that Gavin Newsom and Andrew Cuomo are battling it out in a shadow primary to replace Joe Biden. But they don't say that in the ad. So it's not a flat out lie. It's more like Gavin Newsom is great and Cuomo's an ass. And then the next ad will be like, Gavin's an ass, Cuomo's the man. And we're targeting that at DNC members. And we've reached, I think, over 10,000 DNC, not DNC members, but DNC supporters. This is how insidious Facebook targeting is. There's only 200,000 people on Facebook who are fans of the DNC, according to Facebook. And we're reaching a lot of those people.
Right. I'm just feeling sad for a world where 200,000 people went out of their way to like the DNC.
They liked content related. I don't think they like the DNC page. I think it's...
It sounds like a lot, but then it also sounds like too much.
Well, it saddens me that we live in a society where there's more than, there's maybe more than, I don't know exactly the U.S. how many adults, 160 million or more, right? If you divide the population, there's a lot of adults. And there's only 200,000 people who are like in with the party that is supposed to be fighting the GOP. It's too few people are involved in politics, and so you have like outsized influence by those who are. And that's what we're kind of like culture jacking that, because we're really good at producing media and getting media out there and targeting media. And I think we have an outsized influence because there are so few people involved in that world.
Now, what was I going to say? I actually, for a second, I started once again thinking about the fact checkers and Facebook butting heads about you being a politician. That's just so bizarre to me. I mean, not to go back to it, but the idea that the state would literally view you as a politician, like the government would say, okay, this guy's now officially a politician. And then Facebook goes, no, wait, not like that. It's just mind-boggling to me. It's something I'm going to be thinking about for a very long time.
And it was never fully resolved. And I was doing, like, I went on a tweet rampage trying to get anyone with like stature, like one of the presidential candidates. I'm a member of the Chickasaw Nation. I was trying to get the president of the Chickasaw Nation to write a letter to Facebook, and everyone just blew me off. They were probably like, this guy's crazy, But, I've never peed in my mouth on a YouTube show. I've got my own business. I ran for office in 2009, credibly. I did terribly, but I ran for Congress, 11 years ago. So it's not like this is out of nowhere. Plus, I ran a statewide campaign in the last cycle for an independent candidate.
Right. Now, the funny thing about your Andrew Cuomo, sorry to jump all over the place, your Andrew Cuomo,
for sure.
Gavin Newsom ad is that, you're pushing it out as something that's testing Facebook, and it could be fake news, but I actually think you're hitting the nail right on the head. To be honest, I think.
No, my big dream, right, is that we get Gavin Newsom to replace Joe Biden. he's not a progressive, but the progressives would be a lot happier with him than with Joe. He's an establishment guy who the establishment would be happy with, and then the socialists take over California.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And Newsom doesn't have much of a window. You have to think about these career politicians. They're always going for the next higher office, and people are saying if Biden gets in and is able to serve one term, then his VP will try to serve 2 terms. Or so people are saying Newsom's best hope is if Trump wins, because then he can run in 2024 while he's still a governor, right? If he wins in 2022, if I don't beat him, and I think that his best chance to be president is not if we establish a Republican monarchy, but instead that he replaces Joe Biden and then beats Trump. Because I am of the opinion that Biden is not the best candidate to beat Trump, but I think someone like Newsom could clean up. He's very Hollywood. People most voters vote without much information, sadly enough.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how Newsom would play in certain parts of this country. He's too Hollywood, too clean cut.
Too good. He's got the some people have said the greased hair, the Jason Bateman hair?
Too American Psycho for middle America, I think. I mean, too American Psycho for me, to be honest with you, and I'm in New York.
But the weirdest thing to me is how the media creates this perception, for example, that Andrew Cuomo is the superstar when his city has the worst, or the big city in his state has the worst results in this pandemic of any city in the entire world.
Right. I mean,
right. And yet people are still, he's a media darling.
Right. I mean, I'm happy to finally have an episode after a few weeks to not be focused on coronavirus, but it's going to come up in this show for sure. My audience has heard me say this probably 1,000 times by now. I am in the zip code next to the zip code with the most cases of coronavirus in the country. I can literally walk a few blocks and I'm in that zip code. Andrew Cuomo was out here, and I think there was in the very beginning, there was a real problem where in New York City, there were a number of hate crimes hitting the news where people were attacking Asian Americans in New York. So there was a real push before this all got so serious with the coronavirus to focus on protecting these New Yorkers, which I totally get. So I'm a little bit sympathetic to those who are attacking de Blasio and Cuomo and other politicians for not sounding the alarm in early February. But, they were saying into early March, everything's fine. No need to worry. And I think at that point, they were doing a disservice to the people of New York who were thinking, well, I'm seeing all this news about it. I'm starting to get a little bit worried. But if our governor and our mayor are telling us not to worry at this point, then maybe everything's okay. I mean, at that point, I think it was clear to our leaders at the very least that this was going to be a problem. And Cuomo did not want to do anything. He consistently throughout this whole time period has been bumping heads with de Blasio. The two of them hate each other. The mayor of New York City and the governor of New York State hate each other's guts. And it's a long-standing petty little feud that you think during this time of unprecedented crisis, they'd put this petty little feud aside. No, if anything, they've amplified this feud. Bill de Blasio comes out in the morning almost every day to give his press conference. And without fail, if de Blasio has announced something important in terms of, throw out this example. A few weeks ago, de Blasio announced that the school year in New York City, will not continue. This is it. The spring semester will not, class will not ever be in session again for spring semester 2020. And hours later, for Cuomo's 11:30 a.m., his infamous 11:30 a.m. Press conference now, he comes out and goes, de Blasio does not have the authority to do that. It's my call to close the schools, and I'm not closing the schools yet. Fast forward a week or two, just a couple of days ago, Cuomo comes out and says, I don't think spring school session's coming back.
Really ridiculous.
He just wanted to make that call. And it's also ridiculous to me, and I don't know how it is in other cities. I know I'm talking about major metropolitan cities. I know in some cities people are, the mayor has the ability to close the schools because that seems to be a citywide issue. New York State has these weird old school laws that gives the governor so much power, where the more you look into it, you really say to yourself, literally, what's the point of New York City's mayor? He
Wow.
he controls the budget of, like, he controls the school budget in New York City, but the money then comes from the state, who really then calls the shots. But he doesn't have the authority to close down the schools. That goes up to the governor. If you come to New York City and you see our public transportation system, the MTA, infamous system that runs 24/7 until a few days ago when they started to close it at night to disinfect it because of the coronavirus. But, the MTA, probably maybe not the cleanest or the nicest or the most current in technology transportation system in the country, but easily the largest and the one that runs, and probably more so than any other. The mayor does not control the budget for the MTA. The mayor has no control over the MTA. That is in the hands of the governor, who also appoints the board of the MTA. So if you have a problem in New York City with the subway system and the bus system, literally these systems just run in New York City, and you're getting angry at the mayor for it, I mean, that's what the state wants you to do, because they don't want you to get mad at them, because they don't want you to know that, hey, actually, you'd be surprised to know this, the governor calls the shots on New York City's public transportation system. It's just mind-blowing. And this is the guy that everyone, like you said, everyone's heralding as America's mayor. He's the hero that we all needed during the coronavirus pandemic. Never mind you, of course, that he's also cut Medicaid during this crisis.
Right.
I mean, he went out and he's infamously not doing anything about these. Renters in New York City are practically crying out to the governor, saying, "Please help us. We can't. 2 months now, we can't pay our rent." And they'll say that, oh, you can't get evicted during this. But you think that when this is all over, which it's never going to just end full stop, there's going to be a point where, a month or two that, this is still going on, but the landlords will be able to evict you. And if you don't think the landlords are going to evict the people who owe them 3 months rent, even though they can now pay the latest month's rent, you're out of your mind. These landlords are going to be out for blood, and they're going to take it out on all these people who owe them rent, regardless of whether they could pay the current rent. And the governor refuses to help them. In fact, it stuck with me. In one of these press conferences, he literally joked about how, I'm dealing with this too at home. My daughter's not paying me rent anymore. It's like,
what?
Yeah, it's like, dude, how like, read the room, man. It's like, people are literally going to lose their homes, and they're not going to have money saved up to just move into a new apartment. They're going to be screwed. I mean, and he's joking about it. And then when he was asked about, what are workers who are unemployed supposed to do right now? They want to work, and the unemployment is going to run out at a point, and the federal government's not helping them. What would you suggest they do? And he was just like, they should get an essential job, which, I mean,
Oh, wow.
I mean, yeah, I mean, again, I guess if you're maybe a healthy young woman like the mayor's daughter, perhaps she can go get a job at being a grocery store clerk. She could still possibly die from coronavirus, although the odds are slightly less are slightly less common for her. But what do you do if you're over the age of 65 and you were forced to work because Social Security is not cutting it? What if you are someone of any age who has diabetes or asthma or any other numerous health issues that so many people in this country have? What are you supposed to do? You can't really.
Yeah, it's horrible, because you have the Republicans saying, like, oh, this is nature's course. Like, we're just going to, like, 2% of the population is going to die. That's basically what they're saying at this point, and openly. And the issue is, the population is dying because of capitalism. They're not even dying because of the virus. They're dying because of, like, poverty. Like, when you see Latinos and African Americans dying at a much higher rate or getting infected at a much higher rate, it's because of massive amounts of poverty and oppression, and people that live like 4 people to a room instead of having 4 rooms. I'm sure that the governor's daughter has her own room, right?
Right.
But most like house cleaners, landscapers. I used to be an investigator with the city of San Francisco, and one of the things I did was these task force inspections. And I've been in these rooms where laborers are like eight people to like a 2-room apartment. It's only like a 1-bedroom apartment with 8 people with bunk beds, and they're like sharing one little tiny kitchen. Like that's where these infections spread, and these governors, including Newsom. Newsom was
I was just
faster
gonna ask you
to
about.
initiate a
I
lockdown.
was just gonna ask you.
Yeah.
I just went on that whole rant about Cuomo, and let me tell you, I could. I'm glad you cut me off because I could have. You could have been
You
sitting
could
there
go
for
on
2 more
full
hours.
time.
Yeah. But let me ask you. How has Newsom been? I mean, it's like you just said. I know that he took it seriously a lot earlier, which seems to me worked in California's favor.
It does seem to have worked in California's favor. And overall, I've been pretty positive about his response. But I think that one of the problems we have now is that there are right-wing pressure groups trying to get reopening, and obviously, like, it's hard for people to sit in lockdown. It's hard for people who have their kids. It's hard for essential workers who don't have access to daycare. But we just put out a press release and a big statement on my website, really just for the record, because no one's covering. This is my gubernatorial website. So I have like, it's adrielforcalifornia.com, the numeral 4. And the press is not covering a race that's really 3 years away. But I think it's important for folks on the left to say, look, you can't start a phased reopening of the economy without taking care of the poor and vulnerable, or else all you're doing is slowing down a massive, a cataclysmic event where thousands of people will die needlessly because
Oh,
the state is not providing
they,
for people in the way they need to. Yeah.
they're taking care of the poor and the vulnerable, all right. I mean, I feel like I need to jump into to really drive the point I'm making home. I feel like I need to go into like a mafioso accent or something. Yeah, we'll take care of the vulnerable and the poor. It's like they don't care. I mean, that's the thing about these lockdown protests. Put aside that, and I've been focusing on thinking about this whenever I think about the lockdown. The fact that the majority of the people who are at these lockdown protests are actually not protesting that they need to go back to work because they're going broke or something. The majority of the people at these protests are actually protesting because they want to use those services. It's the most bizarre thing ever. You're not seeing the hairdressers and the school teachers out there going, we need our jobs back, end the lockdown. No, what you're seeing is the people who want to get their roots done and the people who can't stand their kids home anymore out there going, we need the schools open and the hairdressers.
Or they live by the beach.
Right.
I live pretty close to Encinitas, very close to Encinitas, where they had one of the protests, and I learned that they had the protest there because that's where OAN is. And basically, these protests are happening where they can get a lot of right-wing media coverage that then turns into mainstream media coverage. And they're actually busing up and down California. So it's the same group of people, and then they get more, so they pull in some local wackos. And in Encinitas, it was all, you have to open the beach. But it's insane because what's keeping these communities safe is the fact that everyone's staying in their own community. There's not a lot of motion. And once you open the beaches, like Orange County had people just flooding from all over the state to go to the beaches in Orange County. And it's not easy to say, like, but you could say, like, for example, California has, I think, more billionaires than like anywhere else except maybe New York, and just very, it has a very high number of billionaires, of very, very, very rich people. And you could say, like, look, they're going to help us solve this crisis. I said, Gavin Newsom should line those folks up and have them announce that they're taking a 90% tax hit on an emergency basis. The governor has insane amounts of emergency powers and is using them to argue with cities over whether their trails should be open instead of housing all of the homeless in all of the empty hotel rooms, And instead of providing daycare services for all, like, we're paying for our daycare because we don't want our daycare provider to, like, suffer horribly. But our daycare provider said immediately half of their people stopped paying. And then also, they, to my knowledge, did not get connected with the kids of essential workers. Because I would love for my daycare fees to go to the kids of an essential worker during this lockdown, right? But it's not happening. And so, like, everyone's having to fend for themselves. And it's just like a massive failure of government at basically every level.
Right. That's the thing. The few people who are saying, we can't live like this because people need to work and they need to provide money for their family, get money for provide for their families to afford to eat and their rent and everything. Listen, the failure isn't the lockdowns themselves. That's the right move. The failure is the federal government is not providing the basic necessities for people to withstand this lockdown that we need to do. It's the
federal government, which has the ability to print money.
Right.
And that's like a motion to, like, print a coin, and just, like, make tons of coins that are like money for for UBI or something like that. And and then the states have to fend for themselves. They're competing for what they need to help with their hospitals. It's a rough situation all around, and there's not many people inspiring confidence. And that's why I think it takes, like, literally Cuomo, like, being good on camera is enough for people to say he's doing a great job. And it's like, guys, California has not done nearly the number of tests that they need under WHO guidelines in order to start a phased reopening. Because if you don't know where the hot spots are, you don't know where transmission is. So it's kind of like we've all been in these lockdowns, and then they're going to start easing up on the lockdowns. More people are going to start going out. And there's like 100 times more known infections than there were at the start of the lockdown.
Right.
And like, so it's like much less safe for people to go out. And it is the federal government. I focus on the governors because they're at least like not insane. Right. We have a real problem when you have an insane president. I watched his very first press conference on coronavirus where he, like, introduced Fauci, and he had all the CEOs from, like, Target and Walmart. And he said, we're thinking it might just flow through. It'll just flow through. And it's like, yeah, leaving tens of thousands of American dead in its wake, you sick fuck.
The thing is, if you look at the countries that are reopening, they're not reopening after they hit the peak. They're not reopening after they flatten the curve. You literally hear them saying, okay, we now have a total of maybe 100 people with coronavirus. They're like in the hospital. They're quarantined. We just did tests for the past 2 weeks, and we're not, we're at the beginning of this. We were getting a couple, the beginning of these 2 weeks, we were getting a couple, maybe a dozen positives a week. And these past couple of days, we've had 0. Sounds like a good time to reopen. We're going up. You see more and more people get testing positive. It's like, what?
Yeah, in my community, I've been watching the city councils. I have kids, and so these park issues are legit, right? Can you use the parks? Under what conditions? There have not been consistent orders around masks. And if you look at Tokyo, Japan, I believe Japan is the best numbers of any country, and it's because they casually wear masks already for any kind of illness.
I think it was. I think it's Taiwan or
is it Taiwan? Maybe Taiwan is lower. It's basically Taiwan, South Korea, and
Singapore.
Japan are all doing very well. Singapore.
Yeah,
and Singapore is much more. They have a very restrictive government that both takes care of people and surveils them, is my understanding.
Right. Well, I mean,
whereas, yeah.
I mean, listen. I think all leftists are at the heart, pretty civil libertarian about a lot of civil rights issues and speech issues.
I think
and things
in
like
this
that.
case, it force people to wear masks,
but
provide them. Don't beat up black people. It's not terribly hard, but our leaders are not up to the challenge. We're showing that we're just a really failed state, and it's kind of shocking, especially since we're the richest failed state in the history of the world, probably.
Right, like a pandemic seems like the one time where you would be like, all right, the government needs to step it up and take over where they need to take over, because this is only a crisis that a machine as big as a government can truly combat.
Right.
And
right, and the government is democratic, whereas they're saying we need private surveillance, and they're getting all the data from Apple and Google, and it's like, guys, we would like the government to do its job and not have a state that is Amazon, Apple, Google state.
Right. The funny thing is, I remember really early on.
And Facebook state,
Right. It's really early on. I remember reading. I don't know where the tweet is. I should go look for it. But I saw a tweet where someone was talking about how they have family in China, and they were telling them, oh, don't go out to get food. Just wait for because they were going through it, right? They were going through it when this person just started, and they're like, we've been on lockdown for weeks now. Don't go out and get food. Just wait for your government rations. And she was like, hello, that's not what happens here. In China, people weren't going out. The government sent out like the military to drop off full blown like food packages so people.
And they could do that here very, very easily.
Yes.
We spend the money on the largest military in the world, and instead of actually using it to help its citizens, they're looking for a die-off of the weak. That is basically the Republican policy at this point. It's just it's utterly sickening. It's just really like no human evolution with that party. It just is. We're like, I was reading that viral thread about the anti-mask brigade in like 1918 with the flu pandemic, and like in San Francisco, people like 200 people getting arrested because they were rioting or protesting, like vigorously without wearing masks, and like, oh my God, we're like history repeats itself, and we had a bailout that was basically it was the trickle down bailout. Instead of giving people money to survive and to pay their rent during the lockdown, they instead gave the money to the businesses, which then just kind of hoard it and start laying people off.
I think in the coming weeks and months, we're gonna see those people who were protesting these lockdowns. I think we're going to see some pretty sad news stories, to be honest with you. I've already seen a handful of people who were like, this person was posting on Facebook that they believe Trump, and this is all. First of all, the idea that this really baffles me. The lockdown and the anti-lockdown protesters are waving their Trump flags. Do they not realize that these state governments are actually, for the most part, following the federal government's official rules for the pandemic?
Well, yeah, because they'll put out the rules, and then Trump will tweet, but you should really go protest.
But the
he's
funny,
literally playing both sides.
That's the funny thing, though. This is the one thing where he will play both sides. Usually he'll just come out and he'll just side with his people completely. But now he feels like this thing is inside Trump's head, no matter how much he wants to admit it. I believe he realizes how serious this is. I think it's all selfishly how it's going to affect him, but he realizes how serious this is, because can you imagine in any other thing him say, I don't want the governor to open up, but
right, that was stunning.
Yeah,
the Brian Kemp, Georgia. Yeah,
right.
The on the subject of whether Trump can lie on Facebook, he did get dinged on the census, I believe, and I don't think that I've heard of any scandals around his ads with coronavirus. I think that these are areas where Facebook probably is sober enough to say that even the President of the United States can't spread false information about something like the census or something like coronavirus. They rolled out a whole bunch of new rules around coronavirus falsehoods, is my understanding. Although their moderators are having problems because they can't. Some of them have problems because they can't lock down because of the security around moderating Facebook information content. And so I think a lot of them have to go to work and sit in cubicles to moderate content. So it's just a bizarro world.
That's ridiculous. They locked it. Let the workers take it home. I mean, this is on every level, from the government to these major corporations to these small businesses. Who I was reading one in Dallas or somewhere in Texas, not only made their workers go back to the job. They're like a restaurant in Texas.
Oh, they wouldn't let her wear a mask.
They wouldn't let them wear masks.
Just crazy.
It's like we definitely want you to die. That's what they're saying. We're not risking you. We're saying we want you dead. I mean.
Well, it's also what's so nefarious about it is that if you're in a lower risk category, you by going to your job, you are risking your family members' lives. So it's terribly insidious.
Right.
probably not your little kids, but your elderly family, anyone in your family who has asthma or diabetes, very common. And so many people in this country have diabetes. It's just
funny you brought that up. Just earlier today, I don't know if the spot's up because it's taped, but I did this spot on a foreign network that airs in like Britain and Turkey. They're called like TRT or something like that. And I know the name. I'm like having a mental block right now. I've been on there a few times, and I was on there, and they had on Brandon Strand, that walk away guy, the walk away Democrat guy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I heard it, but I don't know the guy.
Yeah. So his whole thing was he's been flying the country, speaking at these lockdown events. And he was like on air. He was saying like, listen, I don't know what the whole big thing about this pandemic is. I'm going all over the country and I'm not, I'm completely fine. Look, I'm completely healthy. I'm like, dude, you're a young guy. You're completely healthy, but did you get tested? And he was like, and he goes, no, I can't get tested because I don't have any symptoms. I'm like, so for all you know, you can be asymptomatic and you're traveling the country killing people. And he said to me, are you calling me? He started getting really loud. Are you calling me a murderer? Are you calling me a murderer? This is on air.
What you tell him is that if you spit when you talk, that it makes it worse.
Right. I should have. That's a really good point. But actually, I thought it was just funnier to be like, I was just like, I didn't use that word. It's like, I didn't say that word. It's like, I know you are, but what am I? It's like,
no, it's crazy that when I saw these chartered buses that people are using in California, we have and this is another problem with Facebook, is they have these anti-vaxxer groups that form and they radicalize people in Facebook groups, like where no one, like they're not public groups typically. And I think public groups of anti-vaxxers may actually be banned. But then in the offline world, you have anti-vaxxers getting on buses, teaming up with a militia group, and then going after Sacramento or other areas. And that is just, that bus is not a good place for people to be, I would think.
Right. The lockdown protesters really are like the fringe of the fringe. This isn't like, the Tea Party movement in the late 2000s.
At least they were just people who hated taxes plus some fringe people. No.
It's actually, but what I'm saying is, they hated taxes. Yeah, well, actually, it was more about hating Obama. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, racist. Like.
But what I was going to say, what I was saying is like the lockdown protesters really are what you just said. The anti-vaxxers, the militia groups. It's really the fringe of the fringe. The Tea Party was at least like hundreds and thousands of your racist aunts coming together, and
even your racist aunt is staying home right now, I think.
Right, exactly.
They don't want to die.
Exactly.
That's the nutty thing. Like you're basically getting the young, healthy nuts.
Right. I mean, if you look at, I'm pretty sure if you look at the polling, I know the polling is like the vast majority of Americans support the lockdowns and don't think we should open up yet. It's something like 69 or 70%. Nice. But I think even the majority of obviously if it's that high, it's the majority of Republicans too think we shouldn't be opening up yet.
Because the majority of Republicans are older voters.
Right.
They're not fucking around. They don't want to die.
Right.
Yeah. That's why Trump also can't side with the more radical elements of his base, because that part of the base is saying, let's just let the old people die. And he's like, wait a minute, those are my voters.
Who's going to vote for me? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, to wrap it up, let's segue back to Facebook, because there's something that happened today I want to quickly talk with you about. And it does have to do with a lot of this that we're talking about too, with the coronavirus. Because like you were saying, there's incredible misinformation going around on Facebook.
Like the 5G craziness. Yeah.
Right. And in those Facebook groups, which by the way, though, I should mention, I wrote a piece on this a couple of months ago before this all happened, but Facebook is monitoring your Facebook group, even if it's a private group. Like they have the keys to your Facebook group to see what's the content in there. So don't think just because you have a private Facebook group, it's only the people in there who you allow in who can see it. No, that's not the case at all. But anyway, so today, Facebook finally, after 2 years of promoting this thing, they announced the first 20 people to their oversight board. Now, this oversight board is going to basically be like the Supreme Court of Facebook. And this is only going to deal with content. And basically, whenever content gets removed from Facebook or Instagram, the person who posted this content will be able to appeal. And then Facebook will go through their policies and look it over. And then they could either repost your content or say, no, we were right. We're keeping this shit down. And then when they say that, we're not putting your stuff back up, you can then appeal to the Facebook Oversight Board. Now, this is an independent entity, sort of. Technically, they are independent in terms of being a separate corporate identity, who will look at these cases and make decisions on these individual cases, saying, no, this content should stay down, or no, this content needs to go back up. And based on these decisions, they're going to recommend and sort of guide Facebook's policies in terms of, updates to the policies, where Facebook went wrong, where they were right, etc. And looking at the board, it seems pretty diverse. You have people from all over the world. You have, it's pretty split. There's going to be, we only know 20 people right now. The rumor is that it's going to be as many as 40 people on this board. They're all over the world. They're all political ideologies. We have a former editor-in-chief of The Guardian who oversaw the Edward Snowden NSA leaks. We have a Cato Institute guy. We have a protester who put together events in Yemen during the Arab Spring, who won a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, it really is. If you were to look at this and not know anything about Facebook, you would say this is a pretty diverse board all over, overwhelmingly. But then you read more about this what they can actually do, and they can overrule Mark Zuckerberg. In terms of, I don't mean overrule Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg, they can have the final say over Mark Zuckerberg about this individual content. However, written in the charter that Facebook, put together to outline what this oversight board will do, there are addendums whereas, if this is to fundamentally change Facebook, Facebook could just say, no, we can't do this, technically or fundamentally, like I just said. So basically, that's vague enough where, none of this is binding, and it's vague enough where, yeah, that specific content might go up, but Facebook could argue, let's throw out an example. They decide that this specific piece of content should go up, and they argue that this specific piece of content being taken down shows the problems with Facebook's share button, and this is what Facebook should do if they want to fix the platform and not let the share button be abused. Now Facebook can say, we can't change the share button in this way. It's integral to how Facebook's platform works, and it'll affect our bottom line. Sorry, we can't do it. On top of that, of course, Facebook is the entity that is funding this independent oversight board, and also Facebook is the company that appointed the 4 co-chairs who then will go ahead and appoint these 20 people. So just want to get that all out there. As someone who is butting heads with Facebook, I would love to know your thoughts about the oversight board.
Yeah, I think that it really comes down to the simple fact that there's too much going on for whether it's 20 people or 40 people to really dig down and adjudicate in a way that's going to react with the timeliness of a platform like Facebook, right? So how many cases will get appealed to them, and how many will they take? I think it'll be a very small fraction.
I should add, I'm sorry, that the panels will be in groups of 5, except for in special cases where they'll call the whole board together. So you could have multiple ones of these going on at the same time. But
I figured they would have smaller, but say that they take, days or weeks to adjudicate something. Like, the virality of things on Facebook is usually hours to days. Hardly ever is it even days. So it just, if you I've heard interviews with PolitiFact where they talk about how they just have constant stories coming in that could be fact checked under the guidance, the agreement they have with Facebook, and they only take a small fraction of them. So if it's a known problem already that you can only take a small fraction, because they're trying to teach the algorithms to do it for them, right, to take things down, and then this board ostensibly will look at algorithmic decisions and decide whether to overrule them. But I think, one, there's going to be a filter of what gets to the board, clearly, whether it's their own filters or filters from Facebook, and then there's the ability of Facebook to ignore it. your point about the share button is important because with WhatsApp, my understanding is that they just recently limited how you can share private messages because falsehoods were going viral in these private messages because people could send them to a bunch of people at once. And now you have you can send to fewer people if you're not the originator. So in other words, like once something starts going viral, they stop you from expanding that spread of the bad information. If they wanted to do that with a share button, it's a really good question of like Zuckerberg has taken such a direct hand, including in this decision about politicians and whether or not their stuff can stay even though it's bad. This board isn't even going to touch that decision until after the 2020 election because their first mandate is what content should be restored, and they're saying no politicians. So in other words, from my perspective, this is another lipstick on a pig event where politicians can continue, Donald Trump and the GOP can continue to put falsehoods on Facebook. They will not be taken down, so this board won't even touch that issue.
Right, and it's important to know, too, that they're only really laying down the law, I guess. I mean, that's not accurate, but only laying down an opinion based on individual content takedowns. Like, they don't have the broad ability to just say, this policy is messed up.
Right,
my example is within the idea that there's a specific case where in their ruling on the case, they explain why the problem affected that specific content decision. So they need to first even get to a piece of content to even share something like that.
My fundamental argument is that the U.S. Congress should do its fucking job and actually wade in, and regulate tech. The problem is that they have too many members who have no idea how tech actually works, how social media works. Like they don't really use the platforms that Facebook has like 2.3 billion monthly users, and yet how many members of Congress actively post to Facebook anything that isn't family related? Probably a lot of them can barely log in.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's the thing too, and you mentioned like, the virality of things on Facebook. I actually slightly disagree. I think, what's really going to affect those decisions in terms of how long it'll take. I see things on Facebook pop into my feed all the time from like years ago. But the thing
there are stories that from years ago that are viral. You can keep posting.
Right. But the thing is though, that for those stories to be viral over the years, they need, according to Facebook's algorithm, to get that engagement from the beginning. So if you take down something that didn't go viral quite yet, and then they take the days or weeks or however long to decide and it goes back up and it didn't have the engagement, then that piece is already dead. Right.
If your video didn't get 100,000 views in the first couple of days, it's not going to get to 1 million if 3 weeks of exposure is cut off.
Right. Like, for example, if your video does get to 1 million views or even a couple 100,000, gets taken down and then comes back in a couple of weeks, it probably, it might not take off as much as it would have, but it might also still do that. There's still a chance because Facebook's algorithm will see, oh, this has a lot of engagement. I mean, it's really a crapshoot based on a number of.
And plus, you don't know when they resume. Facebook, it doesn't solve the problem for most people that Facebook is such a black box. Because we talk about like state power, federal power. These are subject to like open meetings laws, open record laws. They don't maybe always obey them, or they're not as open as some people would want. But Facebook is very much a black box, and not only a black box of how they develop policy. Sometimes they'll reveal certain things that they feel make them look good, but the algorithms themselves are fairly, dense and or opaque. I've had, people tell me things they believe about the Facebook algorithm. And I'm like, where did you hear? And they always have heard it from someone else, but it's because no one really knows. Like how does virality really work? Right. How does, advertising really work on Facebook? And it's like, some people have said they don't know anymore.
Right.
100%.
I mean, you could be like a Facebook, you could have mastered it, figured out how to, game it so your content is always engaged with, always being shared and spread, constantly getting millions upon millions of views if it's video, or whatever. And then just like that, Facebook could just switch their algorithm overnight, and you could lose everything you just learned about how to game the system. And I don't even.
That's kind of what happened to video producers, because I don't know exactly when it was, but in the last few years, there was a huge push for video, and then a big tilt to where video didn't perform very well at all.
Well, actually, what you're thinking of is even more malicious. Facebook had an error in how it was reading the video view data, and it was telling everyone that their videos were being viewed a lot more than they actually were. So you had all these publishing companies seeing their video views going through the roof.
So awful.
Yeah, and so they laid off all these writers and focused on video, and then Facebook was like, "Oh, whoops, your shit actually wasn't being viewed that much."
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's incredible. Adriel, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I have a feeling you'll be, if you'd like, I have a feeling you'll be back on this show many more times. There's a lot more to talk about.
Sounds good.
Give us some, this is your shot right now. Promote whatever you'd like, where we could find you online, your gubernatorial campaign page, whatever you'd like to promote it all.
I think just follow me on Twitter at Adriel Hampton. I'm very provocative, so you'll probably unfollow me shortly thereafter over something that offends you. But the other thing to do is keep an eye on the Really Online Lefty League Facebook page. That's where we post our videos. That's where the ads run from. So that's a fun Facebook page. And keep listening to Doomed.
Oh hell yeah, I like that. That's if you only pay attention to one of those, that's the one. All right, Adriel. Newsom Cuomo 2020. I mean, that's where we should leave it, right?
Well, let's get No, I want it to be Newsom, Michelle Obama. I think they're the team to take out Trump.
I'm gonna selfishly say I want Cuomo out of New York, so I'll go Newsom Cuomo. We'll both get our guys out of our respective states.
That's what it's about.
Take care, man. Have a great night.
Thanks, Matt. All right, mate.
All right, folks. Bloop. Let's go to the second half of the show, where you only will see the content if you are watching live on the stream, or if you are a patron subscriber, where you will get the audio version of the second half. I forgot to promote this up top, but if you'd like me to read your comments 100% the second I receive them, and they will not be skipped, because I do skip a lot now, because there's just been too many. YouTube.com/Matt Binder. Jump in that super chat on the live stream, throw a donation of any amount, and we will, I will, there's no we here, I will get to your comment. What else can we do? Go to patreon.com, of course, and subscribe. Patreon.com/Matt Binder, I should say. It happened again, folks. Last time we spoke, it was right when the beginning of the month was. So Patreon was just starting to charge people, and we were literally 2 patrons away from the goal. 2 patrons away from hitting the goal. And we lost some people because the first of the month with cancellations and cards not working based on people's financial woes during the coronavirus pandemic. Totally get it. If you're one of those people, don't feel bad. That's not the point of what I'm saying. Please, if you have to cancel even, please do so. I can't stress that enough. But if you can afford to subscribe to this show, now's the time to do it. I need you. I really want to build this show out. Been really, I noticed that there's numbers we get to and we just get stuck there. And then all of a sudden there's like, out of the blue, we just rise a couple dozen, and then we get stuck at a number again for months. Help me get out of this rut. And then hopefully the next rut won't come for a little while longer. Patreon.com/Matt Binder. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Matt Binder. Follow me on Twitter @Matt Binder. I would like to use these other networks. Truth of the matter is, I don't use them that often. But if a bunch of people started following me there, I probably will. Matt Binder on Instagram. Matt Binder on Facebook. On TikTok, which I said earlier, I might have to join because I came across a number of TikToks swooning over Andrew Cuomo. So I feel like I might need to jump on TikTok to yell at some Generation Z kids about their Andrew Cuomo love. Search for me on TikTok, Matt Binder. But unfortunately, it seems like there's shockingly another Matt Binder who got the TikTok before me, because I guess there's some young stud out there who got my name after I already have been Matt Binder for years. Unbelievable. So if you search Matt Binder, you'll find me, but I'm actually at Matthew Binder. What else? Where else can you find me? I have no idea. I have no clue anymore. Oh, doomedpod.com for the audio podcast. The pandemic has actually hurt the podcast numbers. You hear all these stories about people live streaming a ton, but then I've been doing some research, and it seems like there are people in the podcasting community who have noticed that without people commuting, podcasts are taking a hit. Not all podcasts, but a significant number of them where they're seeing a trend here. I'm seeing that. But if you listen to podcasts, doomedpod.com/Matt Binder, also iTunes, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts, leave an iTunes review. We haven't got an iTunes review in a little bit. If you're listening and you haven't given us one yet, give us a little life on the podcast realm. Drop us an iTunes review. Tell me who you'd like to see on the show. Tell people, other YouTubers and podcasters, that you'd like to see me on their show. I am going through the people who reached out to me to come on the show when I had that open call. Adriel was actually... Adriel is an anomaly because he's been on my guest list for a while. But then when he reached out when I made that open call, I was like, I'm bumping him up the guest list, so we could definitely do this. So we're getting to the list, but Adriel was always going to be on the show. But we're getting to that list. You guys are next up. I also have some other people I'm talking to come on the show who are not on that list. Yeah, that's all the plugs. Now to the people who make this show happen. The patrons, who I love dearly. My patron subscribers. Oh boy. Here we go. Let's do this. Abigail T, Adam Q, Alan B, Amanda H, Andrew C, Andrew H, Angela, RER, Baka, Ben, Benji, Bobby M, Brosnan, Champagne Kami, Chris F, Christine H, Cindy G, Colin R, Connor R, Cracker Barrel, CTA, Cynthia J, D, Dan K, Dank Uger, Dave K, David Z, Daya, Doug H, Douglas V, Dragon Slayer, Eugene B, Fraz, Free Hat, FTW, Greywind, Greg D, Grim L, Hitesh, Igor, Jack D, Jacob W, Jameson Test, Janelle A, Jasmine H, Jeremy M, JLS, John B, John S, Jonathan B, Joseph H, Joseph R, Joyce M, Justin S, Katie S, Kaushal, Lisa D, Mariah, Mark S, Max W, me, Mitch V, Michael B, Michael J, Michael M, Mr. Dinks, NS, Nicole A, Nam Danet, Null Style, Odeth, Paul M, Penelope D, Qster, Rad Dad, Remy, Ryan, Scott R, Seth K, Sean H, Sheena A, Silicon Baby, Steph R, Steven R, I should say, excuse me, Steven S, Steve A, TM, Tammy G, Terrence R, Hypervisor, This Is Not Pizza, Tina M, Tom M, Why That Tie Guy, Wootopian, and she was very angered to be first last week, so I made sure she was last this week, Zoe G. Folks, that is the free half of the show. Once again, we went way over, which, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing giving freebies so much. And then we go into the second half, and I'm giving the patrons like a double show by going super long there, too. I'm crazy. Patreon.com/Matt Binder. Make my insanity make sense. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, at least free listeners, see you all next time on Doomed. All right, we're back. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know if you saw an ad in between the first half and the second half. I tried something new. Tell me what ad showed up too. That's what I'm really interested in. I have this. I don't know if it's always been there, if I just realized it on the new YouTube uh, live studio layout. But I can insert an ad wherever I'd like now. I'm not gonna do that obviously, unless there's a pause. I'm not gonna make you guys miss part of the show. I'm dying to know what ad they showed though on a show like this. Let me know, actually. And maybe you didn't see an ad at all. Who knows? Like I said earlier, did a show this. I don't know when it aired or if it even aired yet. I will look for the video whenever they put it up. But I did a news hit today on a foreign network called TRT. And I was on with Brandon Stroud, the walk-away guy, the guy who left the Democrats to become a Trump Republican. And it was pretty crazy. He was very angry that I called him out for traveling the country. He was boasting how he doesn't get this whole pandemic thing because he's been traveling around to all these anti-lockdown protests all over the United States. And he's feeling good, he's healthy, not sick. And I pointed out that maybe he's asymptomatic and he's killing people by traveling all over and getting them sick. And he's got coronavirus. And he called me out for saying he was a murderer. Adriel mentioned I should have called him out for getting so angry that he's probably getting spittle all over the place, which I wish I had thought of that at the time, but, you know, it is what it is. Renee with the super chat. We gotta watch Planet of the Humans together. What is Planet of the Humans? Is that the Michael Moore, the latest Michael Moore one? That's probably not public domain though, right? I mean, I'm probably not able to watch that, right? I highly doubt he. Oh, for people who were watching on the live stream, I forgot to point out. Yeah, Adriel was wearing a shirt that says, "If I die, tell Bernie Sanders I love him." Some people were saying it on the YouTube live stream. I guess if you're a freebie podcast listener, you're going to miss out that he was wearing that shirt. Only the streamers, the live streamers, and the patrons will know what was on Adriel's shirt while he was talking to me on the show tonight. Let's go to the comments here. Mariah says, everyone should check out the PSL's YouTube/Facebook/website for some great educationals on socialism. Grimm says, I don't like having to say this, but I would think Warren's backing of Biden shows that she is in every way a team player, as is Bernie. I'm going to do, like I said last week when I went on my rant when Bixenspan was on the show, David Bixenspan. I'm going to do a whole show on the whole Biden thing. So, we'll get to that again. Maybe I'll also go on a rant now. I can't tell, but I'm going to try not to. Because I want to make sure I get to all your comments first before I have an aneurysm over this Biden stuff. Renee says that his shirt should say, still a lemming for. Come on. Come on. Grimm says, it's worth noting that California has had extreme white nationalists for a long time. After all, this is the state that gave us Ronald Reagan, Andrew Breitbart, and Stephen Miller. Right, well, there's white nationalists everywhere. Right, Zoe liked the Troll Pack. The Really Online Lefty League acronym. Yes, it is quite great. I really, I really thought that was when I first realized, I was like, I love it, genius. Renee is asking Michael Moore on Twitter if I can screen Planet of the Humans on his YouTube channel with live commentary. I don't know if he'll get to you, but well, who knows? Who knows? Um, Grim says social media platforms are an MMORPG with PvP options where your suspension count is your HP. Grim says, Grim continues to say, it is a golden age of posting. Biden apologists, Neo Marie Antoinettes just want to watch the paroles die. The paroles die, right. It is. Misha says it really has been ridiculously hot in Cali. Misha says Comrade Sam isn't doing great. Who's Comrade Sam? Oh, your dog. Is your dog okay, Misha? Oh, he's very old. I'm sorry, Misha. He used to howl along with the Fun and a Half song every day on the Majority Report. I'm sorry, Misha. I've gone through it many times. It's never fun. Now I'm sad. I hope everything's okay, Misha. And, if it's just age and he's doing fine otherwise, then, let the old dog rest and just show his age. But if he's healthy otherwise, then I just take advantage of the time you got, I mean, it's easy to say it like that, but I've been there. So I know how sad it is to see an old dog, even when they're not going under any health conditions that are detrimental to their life at that point in time. Yeah. My best wishes. Grim says Andrew Cuomo showed himself when he called unhoused people sleeping on the subway disgusting and not doing anything to house them. That's another one. There's so many I can't always remember all of them at every moment. But yeah, he has been disgusting when it comes to the homeless. I mean, real easy to solve that issue. You have all these empty hotels and motels and vacation spots. You house them there, and you there you go. You have a home for them so they're not all sleeping on the subways, getting MTA workers sick if they have coronavirus, not getting other homeless people who don't have coronavirus sick with coronavirus, and they're people too. Do they not deserve some dignity? They should be quarantined for their own sake as well. Richie says housing is part of the Green New Deal. Right, housing is a right? Richie disappointed you. He wanted us to go off on housing during the show. We could have. We should have. But there was just so much to talk about. Adriel will, without a doubt, be back. And we will definitely be talking housing on this program in the future. And we actually did a few episodes, I think an episode really recently, actually, just a few days ago, that touched upon the housing crisis. And we were talking about the most hard-hit areas of New York City with coronavirus. Nito on Periscope says, here, Georgia governor opened beaches and we have people from South Carolina coming down to our beaches since theirs are still closed. Right. That is another point. We are a country with 50 states. We are the United States of America. Just because one state is doing okay, and the neighboring state isn't. And the one state that's doing okay opens up their beaches. And I mean, really, the states opening up their beaches are not doing okay. This is just a example. People from the not okay state will go to the state that is opened to be a patron at those beaches and then get people there sick. And then you have the whole issue happening in the state that was doing better. I mean, and then the issue will just perpetuate, and it's a vicious cycle. Exactly. Nito points out when we're talking about the difference between the U.S. and China on the first half of the show. We get surveilled too. We just don't get the benefits from it. Right. Right. Exactly. I mean, the United States is a police state in many ways. The security apparatus. I mean, yet we don't have the government coming to give us food rations during a pandemic. We have to go out and fend for ourselves with, if we lost our job, with money we don't have. Nito again with a great point. Our government is only here to protect Our government is only here to protect corporate interests, not citizens, and certainly not the vulnerable, right? Renee says, the massive graves haven't set off any alarms, right? This economy needs zombies to go back to the mall. Nito says, it sucks here in Georgia, by the way. Scary. Hammerstrand on Periscope says, Sweden state excuse me. I always mess up this word. Epidemiologist, excuse me. Anders Tegnell says masks give false sense of security. Well, A, I mean, Sweden is not handling this well at all. But B, it's sort of right in terms of you should not go out and wearing a mask and think you are Superman. Think that the mask is all you need to do and you're now immune from the virus. No, the mask is just an extra layer of protection. But it's not 100% effective. I mean, you should definitely wear a mask outside. Here, where I am, you actually cannot go to the places that are open unless you're wearing a mask. There are signs on the doors saying you enter, you need to wear a mask. But I mean, you should wear a mask. Because even if it just cuts down the odds of you getting sick just a little bit, if it just cuts down the odds of you getting someone else sick just a little bit, it's better than nothing, obviously. But yes, if you're going out there thinking you are now like a, I don't know, freaking like bank vault in terms of protection, you are wrong. But I don't think that Hammerstrand is making that point. Maybe I'm wrong. And Hammerstrand is making that point. Zoe says, televised Russian television is the network, Matt. TRT. No, it's not. It's not RT. It's a Turkish organization. Grim says, we've only done 7 million tests this whole year. About 2% of the populace, right? Right. Grim says, conservatives drink bleach and skin yourselves alive to let the sun shine in 2020 challenge. Silicon Baby says, my racist aunt wants to die despite having no immune system due to radiation therapy because she really needs a haircut. I'm not kidding. My God. She's a wannabe rich snob. There's no way in hell she would cut her own hair. She's glued to Fox News, so she's convinced everything is fine. Jeez. Lord Arion says, should no male identifying person be out here crying about a haircut? Get some clippers and shave your shit off. Then take a razor to it like a real apocalypse warrior. Zoe is telling Silicone to lock her door from outside and tell her she can't get out until she learns to cut her own hair. Unbelievable. Grim says, tie her hair with a hair tie and then slice it with katana. Jeez. Renee says, lipstick on a pig zeitgeist. All right. Mary says, what an awesome interview, guys. Thank you, Mary. Zoe is saying XAA12, right? The Elon Musk, what he said he named this kid. We should do an episode on Elon Musk and his ridiculousness during this whole coronavirus thing, and his ridiculousness, honestly, throughout history and time. But I don't know if I want to talk about Elon Musk right now, to be quite frank. My dad says, where can we see that Matt Strike battle? I don't know yet. I'll let you know. Silicon Baby says, on OnlyFans? I mean, I'm everywhere else. Maybe I should start an OnlyFans. Ryan says, I don't usually listen to the Doomed podcast because I catch most of the live streams. But podcasts are the only thing sustaining me through the quarantine. If anything, I'm listening more. I do think a lot of people listen to podcasts as a commute, a form of entertainment on their commute. And, you know, if you're home, then, you know, you got Netflix or YouTube or Hulu or whatever you watch. I do think there is more to compete with. Whereas podcasts really are the perfect commuting media for commutes. Renee, I like that. Calling the patrons the Patreon saints. I like that. Maybe I should make a note to self. I'm going to write that. Maybe I should make that a new tier on the Patreon. On the Patreon. The Patreon saints. Clever girl. Grim pointing out that I was late starting. I was having some issues. With starting the show today due to technical glitches. My pops is asking if Carnival of Souls is in the public domain. I don't know. I'm going to check it out. Carnival of Souls. It is not going to be public domain. Oh, wait. In the U.S., it is public domain. Because, again, of an issue with the copyright. Interesting. While the U.S. release of Carnival of Souls failed to include a copyright on the prints, automatically placing them in the public domain, the foreign release did contain a copyright card and was protected for overseas sales. Interesting. Maybe Carnival of Souls is a movie to watch. On the next, we all watch a movie night. It's an idea. Oh, wait, good. We got some comments about the ad that I put in there. Grim says, I didn't see an ad, so he said the same thing. Gary says an ad for racial cleansing. Oh, no. My dad said he got an ad at the beginning. So he says, uh-oh, he got the ad button, right? Ugh, Silicone, VMtor. A bunch of people said they saw no ad. Goddess of Love said, get a haircut, loser. Never. Asshole. Ryan subscribes to YouTube Premium, so he never sees ads. You should know this, Ryan, then. When you click an ad, or not click an ad, when you watch the stream, something like a couple pennies from your YouTube Premium gets thrown to me when you watch a stream. So never miss one. Gary says Straka is a murderer. VMTor says that I could watch the Michael Moore movie, but just not show it on screen. For the past, we did this twice. One on Easter as a test. I threw on last minute. I should have given it a little bit more promotion. Maybe we'll do it again, because Night of the Living Dead I could watch over and over again, and we could do some different commentary on it. On Easter night, we watched Night of the Living Dead, and that was a test run because the next week I did a stream with Jared Holt of Right Wing Watch where we did like full-on commentary watching that QAnon movie that came out, that went viral on YouTube recently. And part of the fun is that you guys can watch it with us. If you haven't watched it yet, me and whatever guest I have on, if I have a guest, are on the corner of the screen the whole time. And we're all watching the movie together, so we're all at the same spot. We could pause, and when we pause to talk, your version of the movie gets paused. So I do prefer it like that than us all trying to queue it up and watching on our own television sets or computer screens or mobile device. But, you know, if something really came together that we couldn't show, I couldn't show, I guess I would be fine with that. But I want to try to stick to stuff we can have on here. Renee says, reach out, he'll okay it. Maybe. I don't know. Silicone Baby says, Warren was always crap, and my friendship with Bernie has ended. Grim says, get Jamie, Andy, or Sean on for Can Dialectics Break Bricks. What? Oh, I do want to have Jamie on. I really do actually want to have Jamie on. Very soon. I saw her rant on the Majority Report about the Biden allegations, and it was very good, very good. I've been meaning to have Jamie on for a long time, but then something always comes up because I try to really get someone. I usually try to get someone that pegs it to a specific story that I want to talk about, and we have a conversation about. I mean, you see who I have on, and I think you get the gist of how the show goes. But I have done a few shows where I just get someone on to just talk in general what's happening, and I think I definitely want to talk with Jamie about that. I know I want to talk to Jamie about that, not think. Silicone says, Ventura 2020, baby. He's not running, though. Jesse's kind of whack, says Grim. And so is the Green Party. Yeah, I'm no Green Party fan. Very disappointing. Oh, wait. Bunch of super chats. Can't miss them. 1 second. Let me get to these super chats right now. 1 second. I'm sorry, folks, for not seeing these right away. Ron with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Ron. I'm not a Biden apologist. I'm just an African American who thinks it's important to get rid of Trump. We can deal with Biden later. I mean, listen, I get where you're coming from, obviously. Obviously, Trump is really bad. No doubt about it. And I'm not someone who's, if you go on my Twitter when I've been talking about this, I'm not someone who's been pushing for I think that point is the correct point, that the primary is not yet over. People can unsuspend their campaigns and Biden should or could drop out. I agree with it, but I'm not going to harp on that because I know what's going to happen, and that's not going to happen. At least not how the reaction to it is, to the allegations against Biden is in the mainstream. But my issue with it is literally like, yeah, Trump is really bad, obviously. And we want to get rid of Trump. And yes, even Biden, with what we're hearing, would be better than Trump. You want to discuss how much better? I know we can talk about how maybe it's the same even. I'm sure people can make that case. I disagree with it being the same. But I also don't think that Biden and the Democratic Party, there are certainly issues, in terms of how certain communities are treated on the outset. If you're an African American, Latino, Asian American, Native American, LGBT community, obviously. The Democratic Party will show you niceties that the Republican Party never will. But it's really, just on its face. And when it comes down to it, they really don't do what they should be doing for those communities. And again, yes, in that, even my addendum shows that he's better than Trump. My issue, and if you, again, scour through my Twitter, it's all I've been talking about, is that, if you believe Tara Reid, which I do, we're never going to have an answer. If you're someone who's waiting for the smoking gun, the videotape showing Biden assaulting Tara Reid, it's not there. You're never going to have it. You're always going to have doubt. But there's just so much that's come out. The multiple parties corroborating her telling them this story back in the 90s. I personally think the reaction from Biden and the campaign has not been very good. I think she has been extremely credible, even with her imperfections. And again, you are never going to find the perfect victim. There's always going to be some sort of flaw that you can poke at and prod at to try to focus on to discount them. I am focusing on the fact that what does it say about us? That we are okay voting for someone who we even think it's possible has done this. There are certain lines to draw. And I've made this clear before these allegations came out. I think it is profoundly against what you're trying to do to push people who are saying they are not voting for Biden or do not want to vote for Biden, to push them by demeaning them if you want them to vote for Biden. You will not see me do that. Anything I do will be in the context of, anything I say, I should say, will be in the context of thinking this out strategically. Here's what I'm going to do. And I've not decided yet. Here's what I'm going to do. Take that as you will. Make the informed decision. I think it shows respect to people who, and again, I am a low level, I'm not someone. But clearly I have at least a few dozen people who watch the live stream and a couple thousand who listen to the podcast. And that's enough for me to take this seriously for myself. And I will not, and so that's how I think it shows to go about it. I mean, it shows you guys respect, my listeners respect. And it also, I think, is the right strategy in terms of actually pushing someone in a direction. And I'm actually going to write something about what I think I'm going to do. And I'll obviously share it with you guys. And I'm going to make the case. I've been thinking over it really hard about why, obviously Trump's got to go. And like Ron's pointing out here, obviously as an African American, he's looking at this in a different way than, my white listeners are looking at it, who are fine with voting Green Party. Obviously, not all white people are voting Green Party. Green Party and third-party voters and independent voters and non-voters. There are a lot of African American people who are in those categories as well. But and you have all these pieces that look at why you must vote for Biden to get to for these communities and for the Supreme Court, and they all make fair points. But my take is that to build out the left, Trump's got to go. And the idea is actually, and I've really thought this out, is that, without giving too much away, is that Trump has actually been detrimental to the left in ways that I think a lot of people have not considered. At first, I think there was a boost from Trump for the left. But then, as Trump continued and the different demographics got more involved, it became clear that Trump is indirectly hurting the left. And the faster he's gone, the better it is for progressives, for leftists, for socialists, for the AOCs, the Ilhan Omars, the Rashida Tlaibs, the Bernie Sanders, I'll get more into it. But Ron, I think it's hard for people like me to see. And when I say people like me, I mean people who are having a trouble with this and focusing on this, even as Biden's up against Trump. It's because it is hard for me to be part of a party that has just swept us under the rug. That just says, it's been addressed, move on. Or have literally attacked her, a victim of sexual assault. And even if I end up voting for Biden, I will never get over how these claims were able to be overlooked by the Democratic base, the Democratic Party, the politicians pushing Biden. I mean, there is a very reasonable way for you to come out and say, this is a very serious case, and I believe Tara Reid. And do that without, if you're a Democrat worried about the Democratic Party and the ability to beat Trump, you can say that without, just attacking Joe Biden straight up and saying, this should be investigated and taken seriously. I actually think, Rep. Presley from Massachusetts did a very good job with that in her letter about it that she posted online. The real problem is the people going on TV saying this is over, discounted, lying about the New York Times article debunking this when it did no such thing. So yeah, that's my feeling. we'll be talking a lot more about it, obviously, and what I end up doing. I'm in New York. It's a lot different too. What my vote is, and I'm gonna say that. I say that too, obviously. Champagne Kami, who do you think Biden will pick for with the $4.99? Super chat, doing like a little Price is Right with Ron here. Who do you think Biden will pick for VP, and do you think Hillary Clinton would be a good but hilarious pick? Hillary would be a hilarious pick. I have no idea who Biden's going to pick for VP. I don't think it's going to be Warren. I don't think it's going to be Kamala. I don't think it's going to be Stacey Abrams. Probably Klobuchar. Probably Governor of Michigan Gretchen. Whitmer. I think it's going to be a white woman. I really do. A white woman from the Midwest. I really think that's who they're going to pick. And I think that because Clyburn from South Carolina was very adamant a few months ago about how Biden needs to thank black women who helped him win, who were integral to his winning the primary so far, by picking a black vice presidential candidate choice. And then all of a sudden, like a week ago, he comes out and says, well, a woman is necessary, a black woman isn't necessary. So I think if you come out and say that, trying to get ahead of the rumors you're probably, or whatever inside knowledge you have, that's why I think that's the case. And I also think he's not going to pick Warren, because obviously Warren, as a Native American, is also a minority. I'm joking, obviously. I think he's not going to pick Warren because what is she going to give for him? I think that Biden does not care so much about winning progressives, and also I think Democratic establishment realized that Warren actually hurt herself with a section of progressives, and that whatever bump Biden gets from Warren wouldn't be all that significant when you take all these factors into it. And also, she never got more than third place in every primary race she was in, including in her home state. And I say this as someone, and I see people still knocking me for whenever I'm critical of Warren now. I say this as someone who defended Warren up until after she dropped out, when she should have dropped out sooner, and had a really hard time live on this show. If you go back and watch some of these primary shows, who had a really hard time coming to terms with someone like Warren, one of the rare politicians I really liked, doing what she did and not endorsing Bernie and helping the progressive cause. After this whole primary race was all about how Bernie and Warren are such good friends. And when they finally joined forces, the establishment Democrats who were infighting nonstop the whole primary, they're going to be a force to reckon with to those guys, because they're going to be together in unison. And then what ended up happening is those establishment Democrats all came together in unison in order to stop Bernie. And Warren, someone who was his friend, she couldn't be bothered to help him out. That will never. And again, if she was in contention and there was a close race going on and she could have been a contender for the presidential, I would totally get it. Fine. Even though they could have joined forces then and it would have been for the greater good, still, I get it. But it was obvious for weeks and many primary races, that she was going nowhere and needed to drop out, and she did it. So that's that. I'm not gonna, yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. I can't, for some reason my screen froze and I can't read this latest super chat from Renee. What? Can I just reload it? Give me 1 second here. I can't not read the super chats. That's integral to this whole thing. Bear with me 1 second here. How's everyone doing? Everyone doing good? Holding up under quarantine or lockdown, or if you're opening up, I hope you're you can still abide by the self quarantines. If you don't have to, I hope your place of employment respects you enough to not send you out there to die or get sick. Renee within a super chat. 2 people wearing masks / face shields. Lower rates. Yeah, exactly. It's not a sure thing, but it's better than not wearing one. All right, gonna wrap it up here. A few more comments. Misha says, yeah, Planet of the Humans is on YouTube. Right, but that doesn't mean it's copyright free. Just because they put it on YouTube. Gary says, Ventura, Biden-Trump debate must happen. COVID-19 on Periscope. Welcome to the program, coronavirus. Should Epstein killers be in isolation because Epstein died from COVID-19? I have no idea where we're going here, but I had to read that. Grim says, if Vermin Supreme was on the green ticket, I'd be more into it. Silicone Baby says, you can't deal with Biden after he's elected. Right. Yeah. Renee says, COVID-19 needs to be an interview on the show. Right. COVID-19, will you come on? I would love to discuss your thought process as you ravage the country and the world. I have to get into the mind of the coronavirus. Grim says, Biden will likely resign and make his VP president in a flash. I mean, that's a possibility. Which is why it'd be pretty hilarious if he did choose Hillary. Dank says, I think Newsom has handled this pandemic for the best here in California. But I really like this dude, talking about Adriel. Yep. Zoe says, again, it doesn't matter what Biden will do. We know it's shit. It matters what he'll do in comparison to Trump. Renee says, Biden will fail debating Trump, and in the Midwest, among the Trumpian proletariat and Strasserite agitprop, Biden being a plutocrat. Silicone says, at this point, Trump is a known quantity. There isn't much trepidation, as there was in 2016. He's a coward and not particularly interesting in getting us into a war, which I can't say for Biden. That's one way to look at it. I don't know about that completely, but I think you have a fair point. It's what scares me about Biden the most, says Silicone Baby. Zoe says, seriously, Biden is literally just more Obama. Well, Biden's to the right of Obama. Zoe, we know he won't rock the boat. Gary says, come on, man, Biden 2020. Grim says Antifa 2020. Silicone says, I think drone strikes are going to ramp up regardless. You don't have you don't have to have an actual anti-war candidate. VMDor says Hillary is the perfect pick. Haha. Zoe says Trump or Biden will be president by the end of the year. The time for an anti-war candidate has passed. We failed. Zoe says, if you tell me that outright fascism is better or equivalent to uncaring neoliberalism, then I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Well, I agree there. But we were talking about the idea that there is credible sexual assault allegations against Biden. And apparently the party that is supposed to believe women is not doing so when it comes to one of their own. Renee says neoliberalism will lose to Trump. That's the whole point of the exercise. That too. Or if it doesn't lose, it will certainly give rise to the next Trump, who will probably be smarter and more dangerous than Trump. Silicone says Trump isn't an outright fascist, but he is proto-fascist. The Republicans are going to get worse as the Dems continue to go more right. So he says, sure, okay, proto-fascist, but Biden's still better. Gary pushing Jesse Ventura. Navy SEAL versus career scumbag politician versus fake billionaire slumlord. Champagne Kami says, I'd subscribe to Binder's OnlyFans. Well then, if there's money on the table, then I guess I might have to do it. Oh, we got another super chat. One second. Renee with the super chat says partnership exclusively with YouTube for free to the public. For the Michael Moore thing? I don't know. Silicone with the point I made. What I'm worried about is what is going to happen after 4 more years of the neoliberalism that brought us Trump. Right. Champagne Kami says, I love listening to podcasts on my way to work, during breaks, lunch breaks, and on my way to home from work. Right. I mean, it's all work related, right? That's the point you're making. Right. Ryan says, you usually stream when I'm at work, but I listen to a lot of podcasts while playing video games when I get out for my daily jaunt. Zoe says, it's too fucking late. Trump or Biden is an inevitability. Well, I mean, we're in an unprecedented situation here. You truly don't know that. It's way too early. I mean, it's honestly way too early. You do not... Obviously, if nothing changes, it's Biden and Trump. But to outright say that during a pandemic, with two 70-plus candidates, 70-plus people running for president, who seemingly both have their own medical issues, and we even know about some of the medical issues they both have, that something couldn't possibly happen that would change the trajectory of who is the candidate during the general election. I mean, it's just not the case, to be quite frank. I mean, yes, most likely you're correct. But at this point, it's too early to say there is just no chance. So he says, face it, the left is completely disorganized. There's nothing we can do to change the higher echelons of power. Well, that's not... Yeah, left has traditionally been organized, but we were pretty organized this time around. I mean, there was no stealing or anything like that, but there was some, pressure being put from the party leaders on certain candidates to get in line and beat Bernie. We know that. And unfortunately, all the organizing in the world, as you saw, couldn't beat that. There just has to get to a point where we have a candidate who is as good as those guys in terms of the general ability to just withstand that sort of thing, to be quite frank. So you could come on the show if you want to and make your case I mean, I don't disagree with you. About, the case to vote for Biden. Gary says the elites will figure out a way for Hillary to almost win and then lose at the last minute because they think this shit is hilarious. All right, Zoe's really going out with everyone in the comments. It's too late. I can't go through this all, guys. All of a sudden, the comments are just rolling on in. Ernest says nothing is worse than Trump except the boorish morons who fall for his BS. The people of this country are rotten and cruel and stupid. I mean, they're lied to, and you could blame them, but it's not all on them, to be quite frank. Death and Bolt Pin says Bernie bros would rather have Trump than Biden. Fucking shameful. Well, no, that's not true. That's just not true. Ernest says Trump was warned about Corona in November 2019 and did nothing. That's scary. I mean, if you think there would have been a full lockdown under any president to stop this in November or December, I highly doubt it. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, did Trump fail at this? Yes. Is Trump responsible for the situation we're in completely? No. I think we have to really parse this here. Are there deaths that are on Trump's hands? Yes. Is this worse than it could have been because of Trump's decisions? Yes. Is he continuing to make it worse? Yes. But we're seeing how the rest of the world is dealing with this. And even those cases where they're dealing with it well, they're still locked down. There still are a significant number of deaths. They're still also doing more than our country would have done no matter who was president, to be quite honest. So, I mean, I'm not defending Trump, obviously. I couldn't make it any clearer that he bears lots of fault in this. But the idea that anyone would have done anything drastic like this in November, December, or even January, I think that's where we come off looking like we're just looking for something to blame Trump for, when there's plenty of substantial things Trump fucked up during this coronavirus pandemic that we could actually focus on. Ron says, totally agree, bro. Like, I don't think Biden is going to save us. Like I said, I just want to get rid of Trump. Unfortunately, the only way to do it is to allow Biden to win. Hopefully he drops out. Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. I mean, listen, this isn't hard for me in terms of a loss because Bernie didn't win, or me being petty, or me having a grudge. I voted for Hillary in 2016. It wasn't a hard choice for me. And I'm in New York. I could have not voted for Hillary and it wouldn't have mattered. I just voted for Hillary because I felt strategically, just for myself, in terms of my own. I gotta walk the walk if I'm gonna share how I think we should look at it voting in 2016. 2020, I was resigned to vote for whoever until this came along, and it makes it a lot harder, to be honest. I could make that decision being in New York, and I can tell you strategically what I think in terms of what's best for the left and progressives and socialists and the movement. But I just don't. I think even to a friendly audience, like I have here, it's not helpful to do anything but just generally make the case. I think anyone who's demeaning people by saying you're stupid for not voting for Biden, or you just like Trump, or not voting for Biden is a vote for Trump, all that shit is just harmful and not helpful. If you want to convince people, do it by explaining to them your case without looking down on them. I mean, that's just it. And at the end of the day, you still have to just trust them to base their decision on who to vote for on everything you laid out and everything they've considered. And if you are someone who thinks that's the wrong way to go about it and you want to put pressure on them, I think go for it, but you're just doing more harm, in my opinion. And when I say you, I don't mean you, Ron. I'm talking about people in general who are discussing this with me. And not discussing this with me specifically even. Grim says the U.S. government is utterly illegitimate. Revolt. Beyonce. Grim... To Grim, you first, keyboard warrior. Oh, we got some beef going on in here. Ernest says, Baby Biden is awful, but he won't neglect his duties in responding to a pandemic that has killed 75,000 so far. I mean, there is a question, though, about what are Democratic... Think about how the Democrats, when they were in power, rolled over for the Republicans to reach across the aisle. I mean, imagine a Democratic response where they wanted to look stately and like they are, that same reach across the aisle party to, come together as a country during this unprecedented event and still go along with some of these terrible things that the Republicans have done and not done to help people during this pandemic. It wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. I'm not saying it would have been as bad, obviously. No way am I saying that, but I mean, if you're thinking the Democrats would have swooped in and saved everybody, I regret to inform you what they did after the financial crisis and let many people go completely without help and lose everything while helping the companies that put those people there. Beyonce says, wow, Bernie is done. Get over it, losers. Again, I don't really care about that in terms of, I'm not saying Bernie should automatically be the candidate or anything like that. This isn't about Bernie. I'm not making a woman's sexual assault about a man. No, thank you. If that's what you're doing, you gotta have some introspection and take a look in the mirror. You won't see me commenting about how anything, and I've seen some people who I like and respect sort of doing this, and I don't think that's good. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I mean, you could make the point. I think one thing is okay with bringing up Bernie, and I'm fine with this point because it's a real point. The people who are defending Biden, who made a big to-do about Bernie's gender essay, or the people who said that Bernie's finger wagging is equivalent to sexual assault, yet thinking this Biden thing's a non-story. That's legitimate because you're not going after Tara Reid or making it about voting in Bernie. You're criticizing the hypocrites who are ignoring this and making this matter worse. But other than that, this isn't about Bernie. And I think it says a lot about you to think that it's about Bernie. Champagne Kami says, what a great answer from Binder. Why, thank you. Which one specifically are you talking about? Worker says you should have words with your friends over at the majority port. What are they saying over at the majority port? Oh, we should ask the same question. Pinfold says the left are the enemy of the left. Wait, what is the majority report saying? I can't tell what your answer is. I can't watch every episode of the Majority Report, so I missed there. But I've seen Jamie's great rant on the Biden allegations. Zoe says they're both rapists. There's no anti-rape option here. It's the truth, right? But also, I think it's disgusting to people who go out there saying, how many people did Biden rape? And how many people did Trump rape? So vote for the lesser rapist. That is gross. That is gross. I'm not saying you're saying that, Zoe, but it made me think of that. Worker, you're saying that majority report saying vote down ballot and don't vote for Biden for prez. Vote someone else or leave blank. No way Sam Cedar's saying that. Who is saying that? Is that Jamie and Michael? What is Sam saying? And what is Michael saying? And what is Jamie saying? And what is Lech? What is Sam Lech, right? Not Sam Lech. Matt Lech, right? Yeah. What is he saying? Ryan says the VP is definitely not going to be Kamala, and the K-Hive psychopaths are going to fully self-immolate over it because I guarantee they think her being VP is how she can wind up as president. Pinfall says girl boss. Grim says it'll be Klobuchar, maybe Whitmer. Yeah, I'm really going towards those two. I really think that could be the case. Or it's going to be some white Midwestern woman completely out of left field, like the equivalent of a Tim Kaine. Worker says the Green Party exists. They run candidates up and down the ballot and win in a lot of states. They don't. I don't know where you've seen this. Where they do win, it's very minor. Obviously, every elected office counts, and it's great that they run for these minor because that's how you start. You have to start at the bottom, but they don't do it enough, and they're not serious about investing in it. And the only time they really do invest in something as a party is for these presidential runs. And I think it's just, I'm not telling you not to vote for them if that's who you want to vote for, but what I am saying is they're not an option if you want to build a true leftist or progressive movement in this country, because they just don't have it. You want to talk about the left failing and being too weak or not organizing or whatever. The Green Party has shown that even when they have more resources than just a movement without a party, they can't do it. They do it even worse, honestly. I mean, we got behind a guy, the left got behind a guy who almost did it, who almost won. The left organized and Bernie Sanders came closer than any leftist has ever come. And I think combine what we learned, upping the ante next time, with a better candidate who will go on the attack more. I'm not attacking Bernie. Bernie has brought us here. All the respect to Bernie. When I say better candidate, I'm simply talking a candidate more willing to go the distance in the race that he was dealt with. I think he really was hurt by the fact that he thinks Biden is his friend. I mean, it is what it is. Worker says Bernie was a coward. Not really. Silicone says if the vote is split because there's a more left-leaning third party, the Dems have two choices. Move left to regain those votes or lose forever. Well, the problem with that line of thinking is that the Democratic Party has already laid out what they think the strategy is. And it's to get more Republicans, the suburban Republicans who they think are disgusted by Trump, to vote for them. So unfortunately, that is not going to work, that strategy. There are ways to convince them to go left. That's not one of them in terms of that. I do think just saying you don't know how you're going to vote or you're not voting at all is actually more worrisome to them than saying you're voting green. Because you say you're voting green and they're writing you off right away. They don't think there's any winning you over. But if you're just disenchanted, then they might see an opening. That's why I say I don't know what I'm doing. Bianche says, I suppose the votes were rigged again. LOL. Leftist conspiratards. Do you push Seth Rich theories too? Well, I think you just gave away a lot right there to who you are, Bianche. I think you accidentally dropped the mask, buddy. Pinfold says, identity politics over class consciousness is the gravestone of the left. So he says, this comment section is making me go insane. Bye. Oh, Zoe, don't leave. Worker, be nice. No good riddance, Zoe. I like Zoe. And it's good to have this debate in the chat, which is why everyone should continue being friendly to each other. And no one, whether it's Worker or Zoe, should take it to heart. Renee says, take the money and run, Matapakos. What are you talking about? Mason says, love you, Matt. Sorry, can't watch the stream tonight, but we'll definitely hype to rewatch tomorrow. Dude Man with the $5 super chat. Thank you, Dude Man. Matt, thank you for what you do, man. I agree with a lot you have to say. Also, yeah, that person did drop the mask. Ha 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 ha. Right. I mean, Pinfold says Newsom needs to seize all the $3K a month corporate landlord properties. Grim says, Me Too existed for a decade, but for Alyssa Milano and the talent agency way above her co-opted it. I mean, what was really shocking to me was seeing not shocking, what was really disheartening to me was seeing the founder of Time's Up come out with a tweet storm about how explaining why this is so difficult for so many people to believe that Biden could do this, sort of explaining it away. No. It's not hard to have a problem with someone who has these credible allegations against them, regardless of who they are, what party they're from. If Bernie Sanders had a credible sexual assault allegation against him, I would drop him in a second flat. That's simple. Hell, if my own family member had credible sexual assault allegations against them, I would drop them flat. I mean, obviously with your family, it's different because you'll always love someone for whatever. But in terms of letting them, like, they wouldn't be in my life anymore. You know, I would hope that they would get help or whatever, and I would obviously be you know, still think of them because it's your family. But they'd be dead to me, man. Like, they would be. There's no coming back for that. There's no forgiveness with that. I mean, sexual assault is serious shit. I mean, I sound like that sounds so stupid, but there's no more like straight away way to put it. Like, it's deranged, really. Ron says Trump is neoliberal too. Tax cuts, deregulation, pro Wall Street. But yeah, I hope Biden drops out and we get Bernie. But listen, I'm not even under the impression that that's even a possibility. Like, that's a long, long, long shot. I think if you're a Biden supporter, but you also respect a woman who comes out and says these things, a brave woman comes out and says these things, you at least just wait to see. Like, the idea that you would just come out and just brush it off that quickly is truly sad. Misha says, people being held accountable for sexual abuse is good, actually. It just should extend to everyone, not just rich actresses. I'm not going to talk about Rose McGowan and Asia Argento right now, but yes, Rose McGowan, I think she is very, I mean, what happened to her, I think she is extremely brave for coming out, but I also think the abuse she has taken has really affected her very much, which I completely understand. I think she needs a support system that I don't think is there for her, from everything I've read and seen about her situation, and it's very sad. But but the fact that she's still out there doing this, and then she's also standing up for Tara Reid as well, is amazing to see. But she is, I feel really bad for her. And she said some dumb things too, but I think it all comes under the situation of what she's gone through. And Asia Argento is another case altogether. I'm not going to get to that right now. Worker says, if Bernie was no Eugene Debs, the left needs Cornel West, Rev Barber to run, not a social democrat LARPing as a socialist. I would love Cornel West or Rev Barber to run. And Barber has some mainstream appeal too. So he's a real possibility. Silicone says, I want to see a Nina Turner or Brianna Joy Gray ticket. Grim says, Harry Belafonte, Donald Glover. Renee and Worker are having a spirited conversation about the New Deal and if it was insufficient for minorities. That's a whole other conversation. I'm not going to go there right now. But I'm happy to see you guys talking it out in the chat. Now they're having a spirited conversation about UBI. It's another I got to wrap it up, so I'm gonna just quickly go through and see if there's any relevant comments to what we're currently talking about before getting into completely different all right, here we go. This is what I want to get to. Worker says Sam Cedar is shaming people for not voting Biden. Silicone says Jamie says the best things, Sam says the more liberal things, and Michael is never there. Renee says Jamal's on Jacobin with Anna. Mara says no one in the majority report is saying that. Everyone says vote Biden. What? I'm missing it completely. Now you guys are... Grim says Brooks is whispering stupid poll to Nomiki. What? Dude says he kind of stopped recently, especially after Jamie railed Biden and corporate Dems. I've not learned anything about the majority report's stance on this, to be honest. Richard says, love you, Matt. Thank you. That's what I like to see. A lot of spirited conversation happening in the chat. So that's it for today, because I can't get into all of this right now. We're running out of time. And by running out of time, I mean I'm running out of energy. I'm exhausted. I worked today working on some pieces and articles I'm working on. Did that earlier hit on TRT. Took care of the 2 kids. Had a phone call for a piece I'm working on. Did the show here. Mike says, I'll be voting Trump again. Mike on Periscope says that. All right, Mike. Dude Man says, Matt, on Super Tuesday, I was panicking because of the primary results and I was being a dick. I was taking it out on you in the comments and I'm really sorry about that. Honestly, I hope you haven't been, fixated on that because I don't remember it at all. I don't take anything to heart, honestly, especially on here. In terms of, people... I take it to heart when people are saying nice things because I truly am heartwarmed by it. But I get how when people are angry and how it gets out of control on here. I don't take that stuff to heart. So don't worry about it, man. Hammerstrand with a tweet, message I wasn't thinking I'd see here. Empathetic listening is important. Grim says, hope there's another bigger, badder black bloc after the election is canceled and Trump declares himself dictator. Speaking of the majority report, actually, I cannot believe in this whole situation. They have not reached out to me once to have me on the show. A little bit sad. Especially with Michael not showing up apparently all these times. You think Sam would say, Matt, why don't you come on? It is what it is. It's all right. I do this alone. I don't need anyone. I'm a loner, daddy, a rebel. Worker says, before the stream ends, I just want to say thanks for the convo, Renee. I love that. I love to see that. Bernardo on Periscope says, you look like Diogo Defante. Who? Who? He's a comedian? I don't know if it's a good thing or not. I don't look too much like him. I mean, we both have facial hair. And style of hair in general. Yeah, I have no idea. Who knows? listen, if I don't know how many people are watching the stream right now, if all of you right now just sent emails to the Majority Report saying, I want to see Matt Binder back on the show. Where's Matt Binder? I want to see Matt Binder back on the show. I think, because that's what happened last time he invited me back on. I got a call from him saying, I want you to come on. A mass email campaign to Sam right now saying, you know who I really want to see on as a guest again? That Matt Binder. He's saying some real great stuff about this whole Biden situation. Or whatever you want me to go on and talk about. He's making some great points about what Facebook's doing. Worker says, Majority Report is going hard to center right. Sam has protect that MSN. Dude says he really should. You do good stuff, and I think MR would do well with you included again. It feels so empty with the missing spot. Dude, man, send that email exactly with that. Say, now that Michael's never on, you should bring back Matt. Maybe he'll do it. I am interested in seeing what would come out of that. All right, guys. Great show today in terms of I'm not propping myself up. I'm saying great show in terms of all the content you guys gave me for the second half. Great comments, I should say. That led to a great show. We'll have some great guests coming up. I'm talking with some great people right now. Still working on some projects I'll let you guys know about as they roll out more. I feel like I've been very busy during this pandemic. I feel like I've been busier than ever before, to be honest. And it's just crazy shit, man. It's just all so crazy. Props to everyone who's been working out there, the medical field, in the essential worker field, whether you are a nurse or a grocery clerk or whatever you are. Just stay safe. Thank you. Yeah, guys. What is the Majority Report email? You're right. What is it? I haven't seen it in a long time. Is it... Let me get it to you actually before we close. Because I'm going to tell you guys to do something. There's a contact button on the website at majorityreportradio.com. And I believe the email is it's still the same old one. majorityreporters@gmail.com. So Majority Report, just Majority Report with an ERS, majorityreporters@gmail.com. All right, guys. Take care. Have a great night. See you all next time on Doomed.